At its peak, it fed more Americans than almost any other company on Earth. It pioneered the very concept of the modern supermarket, the wide aisles, the self-service model, the one-stop shop. And then, while the entire grocery industry it created went on to generate trillions of dollars, the company that started it all quietly collapsed. The question is, how does the inventor of an industry become its most famous casualty? The story begins in 1930 in Jamaica, Queens, New York. A former Kroger executive named Michael Cullen walked into an abandoned garage and opened a store unlike anything America had ever seen. He called it King Cullen, where other grocers kept goods behind counters and had clerks fetch each item for you. Cullen let customers roam freely, pick their own products off open shelves, and pay at a single checkout. It sounds obvious now. In 1930, it was revolutionary. Cullen's insight was almost ruthlessly simple. Buy in enormous volume, cut prices dramatically, sometimes below what competitors charged wholesale. Make up the margin on sheer foot traffic. He called his own stores monstrous in his original pitch letters, and he meant it as a compliment. Within 2 years, King Cullen had 15 locations and annual sales that would be worth hundreds of millions in today's dollars. The supermarket was not an evolution, it was a rupture. The established grocers initially laughed, then they panicked. The Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, better known as A&P, was at that moment the largest retailer on the planet. It had over 15,000 small neighborhood stores across the country and a distribution network that was genuinely the envy of the industrial world. Its executives looked at King Cullen and saw a gimmick for the lower classes. They did not move quickly. That hesitation would take decades to fully reveal its cost. Here is where the story becomes genuinely instructive. A&P did eventually build supermarkets. By the 1950s, it had transformed much of its network and was still the dominant grocer in America. But it had built its entire identity, its supply chain, its private label brands, its real estate strategy, around small stores in dense urban neighborhoods. Switching to the suburban supermarket model meant not just building bigger boxes, it meant dismantling the nervous system of the entire company. And then came the suburbs. After the Second World War, the American population began its great migration outward, away from the city centers where A&P had always thrived. Families moved to places where land was cheap, cars were essential, and shopping once a week in a giant store made more sense than walking to a corner market every other day. The new landscape demanded new competitors, and new competitors arrived. Safeway, Kroger, Winn-Dixie. They had no legacy model to protect. They built for the world as it was becoming, not the world as it had been. A&P's leadership understood the threat intellectually. What they could not overcome was the gravity of their own past success. The company's entire financial model was built around extracting maximum value from a distribution system designed for small store density. Every time they opened a larger suburban supermarket, it cannibalized several of their existing smaller stores without generating equivalent returns. Their real estate leases locked them to old locations. Their labor agreements were structured for a different kind of operation. Success, compounded over decades, had become a structural trap. By the 1960s, the cracks were visible. A&P still had enormous revenue, but its profit margins were thinning. A company that had once seemed untouchable was now reacting to the market rather than shaping it. It tried price wars. It launched a discount store concept called WEO, where economy originates, that confused customers, infuriated suppliers, and managed to reduce profits without meaningfully growing market share. When the strategy failed, management reversed it almost entirely, which confused everyone all over again. Decisiveness had left the building. The decade that followed was quieter and in some ways more damning. A&P began closing stores, not as a strategic retreat to stronger positions, but as a slow bleed. Thousands of locations shuttered through the 1970s. The company that once had 15,000 stores was down to a few thousand. And the stores that remained were often aging, poorly located, and increasingly unable to compete on the one dimension that had always mattered most in groceries: price. The inventor of low-cost self-service shopping was now one of the more expensive options on the block. There were attempts at revival. A German retail group acquired a controlling stake in the 1970s and injected capital. New store formats were tried. There were periods where analysts genuinely believed A&P might find its footing. But each recovery cycle revealed the same underlying problem. The company no longer had a clear answer to the most basic question in retail. Why should a customer choose us? Not just on price, not just on location, on anything. Without a legible identity, no amount of restructuring could hold. What happened to A&P is not a story about bad luck or a single catastrophic decision. It is a story about what happens when a company's greatest achievement becomes the thing it cannot see past. The supermarket model A&P reluctantly adopted was never truly owned by A&P, not culturally, not strategically. They built the format, but never rebuilt the identity. And in an industry where margins are razor thin and loyalty is fragile, identity is not a luxury. It is the only durable competitive advantage. A&P filed for bankruptcy for the second and final time in 2015. Its remaining stores were sold off or closed. The brand that had once been the largest retailer on earth, larger than any department store, larger than any chain that existed at the time, ended not with a dramatic collapse, but with a quiet dispersal. Some of the store locations were absorbed by competitors. Most were simply emptied. And the grocery industry A&P created kept going, humming along, completely indifferent to the absence of its founder. The sharpest lesson is not about retail strategy or demographic shifts, though both matter. It is about the peculiar danger of inventing something transformative and then treating that invention as an identity rather than a starting point. King Cullen opened in a garage because the established world had no room for a new idea. A&P, once it became the established world, found it had no room for new ideas either. The inventor had become the institution. And institutions, history suggests, rarely disrupt themselves in time,